ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call to order the Town Hanson Planning Board meeting for June 12th, 2023. Meeting here at the Town Select Board office, starting tonight at 6:45. I'd also like to announce for those in attendance that this meeting is being recorded for distribution on Woodland Hanson Community Access. Playback times and other related information on this recording can be found at Woodland Hanson Community Access TV. First item of agenda business is to have a roll call. This evening we have accused applicants for Mr. Benato being waived. Mr. Kemp is present, Mr. Cohen is present, and myself present as well. Mr. Ellis is not present at this time. After we go, the first item that we have on our agenda this evening is for the board to go into executive session. So I'm going to read into the record the write-up on our agenda for the executive session. Executive session pursuant to the Open Meeting Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health, rather than professional competence of an individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. Open session may follow in a review, consider, and vote on a response to Open Meeting Law complaint against Planning Board date June 1, 2023, filed by Alan Diaz on file with the town clerk. So procedurally, what we'll have to do is the board has to vote to go into executive session, and once we're in that session, we have to clear the vote. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. So moved. Motion's been made and seconded. We're going to do this as a roll call vote. Mr. Kemmett? Yes. Mr. Cohen? Yes. And I am an aye. So that's a 3-0-2. We will now be in executive session. So we'll come out and grab everybody in a few minutes, just to bring it back in.
Resuming open session, 7 p.m.
Seeing as the time is 7 p.m., the Hanson Planning Board will return into open session, newly doing so by vote in executive session. Return to open session. And right now, after seeing that the hour is at 7, we have a few moments on our open session regular agenda, and then we'll be going into recess. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to further proceed with Meade, Tellerman, and Costa, Town Council, and notification to Mr. Alan Diaz regarding the filing of an open meeting violation against the Town of Hanson Planning Board with a request that the response be sent by certified mail. So motion's been made by Mr. Kevin. Second. Properly seconded by Mr. Cohen. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0-2. So Tony, please notify Town Council, and that we also have to request that they be notified by certified mail as well.
Will do.
Thank you. It is now 7:02, and we are going to have a brief recess. We're going to go back to order the open session or regular meeting of the June 12th Planning Board meeting here in the Town Hall. And going on into our agenda, we have a 7:10. Before we do that, folks, I want to make sure that I recognize and thank Select Board Member Ed Heel. He is our representative from the Select Board to our meeting. Nice to see you. He's on to the Planning Board, so that's our Board of Select Board member, and it's liaison. Welcome. He pops in from time to time, gives us a pop quiz, make sure that we're staying on. So, on our agenda, we have 7:10 request for continuance, June 26, 2023, application for improvement to a private way, Snow Street, in conjunction with proposed construction activity at 0 Snow Street, Assessors Map 1, Lot 1282 inclusive, has been filed by Alan Diaz, trustee, in accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 48, Section 81-10 of the Subdivision Control Law, and Section 12D of the Hanson zoning bylaws. Town planner.
On May 30th, we received a letter from Alan J. Diaz. It's May 30th, 2023, addressed to myself, Town Planner, and Hanson Planning Board, regarding adequate access petition. Dear Mr. DeFrias, I believe your office has scheduled June 12th, 2023 as the continued date for my petition. I will not be available that date. I would ask that the continued hearing be held on June 26, 2023. I would also request that I be provided with the names of the residents that attended the May 22nd, 2023 meeting. Upon verification of the rescheduled hearing, I will notify those parties and all abutters of the rescheduled hearing. Respectfully submitted, Alan Diaz, trustee. I did respond to Mr. Diaz's letter and let him know that I was placing this before the board for tonight, and I did send him a copy of the May 22nd sign-in sheet.
Okay, great. So without getting into or down into the weeds, I know there were some folks that were associated with Shane, if you're here to talk about this on the agenda, so thank you. I don't want to get into any kind of back and forth in regards to the applicant or what's going on. However, this is the second appearance of some of you here at our hearing at our planning board meeting, and I know there may be some questions as to why this is coming up. Is that correct? So without getting into too much detail in regards to the why this is coming up, I would like to talk with everybody and explain to you the procedure of how we may have gotten to the point where we're at right now. So, in regards to anybody that lives on a private way where they have a parcel or a lot that they're looking to build on, one of the requests of the planning board of a landowner is to come in for what's called an adequate access determination. And by getting either an approval for an adequate access determination and or a denial, it makes the procedure go into a few different directions. So you got a couple different prongs of the fork that can be obtained after that action. One of those happens to be that if there is a denial, that the next step in our rules and regulations is that the applicant comes in with an improvement to private ways, which is what we have here. So the improvement to private ways, when an adequate access determination may or may not have been denied as a result of that, the improvement to private ways is exactly that. It's the way that an applicant can come in with some potential requests or discussions with the planning board for an improvement to the private way that the planning board could not endorse and procedurally go down the road of having those improvements made to that way, and then the applicant could come back with an adequate access request again. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we're at with where we're at today. But specifically, there was a previous application for an adequate access, and there was a previous denial in regards to that adequate access, specifically in regards to Snow Street. And the board is waiting for an appearance by the applicant to come in to discuss what is next on the list, which is an improvement to private ways. And we just happen to have a few requests by the applicant for a continuance on that. Does that kind of bring everybody up to?
All right.
Sounds about right. Okay. So does anybody have any questions in regards to the procedure and the process and where things go without going into the specific application? I just want to make sure that that person's not here, so it wouldn't be right to discuss that. But I want to make sure everybody's understanding of the process and where things go.
I have a question as far as him having the list, the sign-in sheet from that meeting. Did he also gain access to our phone numbers or our email address, or would it just be the people who signed it?
It would only be what was written on the sign-in sheet, because that's a public record.
So, because we wrote our email address or our phone number, okay, so he has access to that.
Yeah, it's a public record. Anybody that requests it would be able to have access to it. Yeah, sure. Anything else? So the next thing we're going to do is figure out when we're going to be able to fit that onto the agenda, the schedule onto the agenda. So, board members, any questions?
No questions, really. I just wanted to add, I know this is probably frustrating for you guys, but I'd like you to stay in it, try to come to the next meeting when we have one on. I don't want you to be discouraged by the fact that this keeps getting canceled.
Okay.
Awesome.
Tom, any input?
No, not at this time.
With that, I entertain a motion to move to continue the improvement to our private ways request as written on tonight's agenda to July 10th, 2023.
So, I'm sorry, July 10th?
July 10th, that would be the first meeting in July for the board.
Do we need to check and see if he's available?
That would be up to the town. I don't know what that is.
So moved to July 10th.
Motion's been made. Motion's made to move the, hearing for approval to private ways and associations to July 10th. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussions in regards to that motion about moving to July 10th, 2023?
Yes, I have a quick question.
Mr. Kevin?
How many times could continue?
At this point, I believe as many as necessary until we need to take other further action.
Shouldn't be for good cause? I think we should, if it's going to continue to be canceled, I think we should have a reason for it.
Absolutely do know, and I think that we did have a reason tonight with the applicant's email. Any other discussions in regards to that motion?
Yeah, it's
That's from the board, sorry. Sorry. No further discussions about that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? 302, motion carries. So please, Tony, notify Mr. Diaz of the appearance on July 10th.
We'll do.
Two. For the board, are there any other questions in regards to that was just me? Wonderful. Appreciate your time. Appreciate everybody stopping by and visiting with us. I hope I was able to clarify some of the procedural things that are going on. So.
You can check the webpage. The agendas are posted 48 hours before the meeting, which would be usually the Thursday prior to the July 10th meeting. And also, we'll probably notify you by regular.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hope everybody has a wonderful Fourth. Thank you. Moving on to our next appointment on our agenda. We have the 7:15, talk with the pay, it's now 7:18, 7:15, continued public hearing, Meadowbrook Farms Residential Subdivision, 0 County Road, Assessment Map 74, Block 0, Lot 7 and 8, applicants Ellis Building and Development, representatives, Morse Engineering Company, for the record, Mr. Ellis, in previous meeting past, we state this again for this record, has no affiliation with the applicant. Even though Mr. Ellis is not here, so I want to make sure I got that on the record. Town planner.
So we received revised plans and information in the letter responding to the peer review done by Verdantis on behalf of the board. And I believe that this evening they're here to discuss what those changes are as far as the responses to said letter. This information and revisions have been passed along to Verdantis so that they can take a look at them to see if the applicants address all of Verdantis' concerns. They did tell me that they'll have, let's say, their second response available for the 26th of June.
Say that again, on the 26th of June?
Yes, Verdantis will have their second peer review letter for the 26th of June.
And I see we have in the audience tonight Mr. Jeffrey Hanson, PE from Morse Engineering. Nice to see you again, Jeff. Welcome. Floor yours, sir. One of the updates.
All right, so I'll keep it fairly brief. We haven't been here for a while. I think the last time we were here was February 27th. Since then, we have been busy though. The plans have been peer reviewed by Verdantis. We also received comments from fire, police, highway, and health. They were all okay with the project. Comments that required plan changes. Also going on at the same time is conservation did a peer review of the wetland line. We made a couple of very minor edits to the wetland line, and then they also had the engineering peer reviewed as well by Hanson. So we received all those comments. We addressed them on conservation and planning reviews. We understand that those comments have not been reviewed at this point, so we're kind of waiting for the second round of comments. And we have a conservation meeting next week.
Can you point me to the line change on the plans for
What page is that? Put the existing conditions plan for all these streets that we're in. And coming off of County Road, B11R was added. So the top middle of the page.
What's it called? B11, is that what you said?
B11R.
This is B11. Yeah. Right here.
This was the original location of that flag, and they added a new flag here. Bumped out a little bit. And then the other two changes they're along this line. One of them was in this area, totally away from the project. The other one was over here, somewhat near the outlet to the basin. But
Can I ask a question?
yeah, this thing.
Is there a reason why the line was removed? Was it viewed again and found to be insufficient the first time around?
They didn't question it the first time around, but the delineation had expired. It's only good for 2 years. And they requested that they have someone do an independent review of it.
Same, even.
No, we had it flagged by Environmental Consulting and Restoration originally, and then we had him confirm the delineation. And the Conservation Commission had a third party review. I forget who that was at this point.
So was that third party view of side of the line is not sufficient?
Yeah, I mean, you could say that. I mean, overall, I would say it was very sufficient. It barely moved, but really only that one flag relative to the project. But so for a project this size, I was pretty happy on my change as well.
I'm not sure, I don't think we were here during the last meeting, we had some input, some changes in regards to coming off of county. So I'm looking at see if those changes were affected. Any questions about, yeah, that's a lot of fun. Questions about the big berm, big swale.
Yeah.
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, absolutely,
So, you're showing a trench, was it 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep? And when Greg was here, the concern that I brought up, I see the trench, I see you have outlet structure that goes out, but the concern I have is the maintenance. And the folks right here at number 96, clearly they don't have an easement or any kind of access to that trench, so if it's not maintained, they run the risk of they're getting runoff towards their property. So what I had suggested to Greg was looking at putting that trench also within a swale, just as additional protection for these folks because it is so close. Again, it's just a case of they don't have any access to maintain that, so they're depending on someone else doing that maintenance. And if it's not done, at least that's sort of an extra protection for them.
So can I ask another question? Is it the intent of the developer or whomever that that area that was the trench would become to be property at some point, or is it going to be maintained privately?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be that falls within a drainage easement that would become part of the town's responsibility if they accept the road, correct?
That's correct.
That's
It's within the drainage easement. It's part of it'll initially be the responsibility of the developer, and then it'll be turned over to either an HOA or to the town.
Now, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
have you made that decision yet?
It's the intent to have this become a public road that would be accepted by the town, but that has to go to a town meeting and be voted on by the town, so it's come back at the town's discretion.
It has to be recommended by us.
As well.
I see that you want to give a request on
Verdantis had, we'll call it 50 comments. I'm not sure if the board wants to go through every single comment. I don't know if you want to touch on our highlights, Jeff, or the most important ones. I think probably the biggest questions have been the drainage. I don't know if the board would like to entertain looking at specifically the comments related to the drainage.
So, you want that,
I'm sorry?
do you want Verdantis' response? You copy it?
So some of the changes we made in drainage, the drainage basin is made up of two basins, one that overtops the next one. The reason we're doing that is that area, it's not perfectly flat, it's on a slope, and you have groundwater down 2 feet, pretty much wherever you dig. So the grading works out much better if you can kind of step it with two basins. The first basin overflowed just to fill up the top and overflowed over here, like a riprap spillway into the second basin. So we added an outlet control structure. The benefit of that is we can start getting water out of that first basin into the second earlier, and therefore we're ultimately infiltrating less water in that location. We also added some low flow channels, basically a stone channel that meanders through the basins in order to prevent, basically giving the channel a direction for the water to go during the smaller storms when there's only a small amount of water in the basin, so it doesn't create erosion. And we made some adjustments to the watershed areas. We added some more details I guess we added more detail to the detail of that basin, showed the groundwater, showed the existing grade. We did additional test pits. We were required to have a minimum of 2 test pits, which we had, but being that these basins are kind of large and the surface elevation does change, we went out there and had a few more test pits done in each of the basins, which were witnessed by a representative of the town. And,
Excuse me. Can I ask a question?
yes, sure.
Who is the representative from the town?
Nick Sweeney.
Okay, because I see on your, that's like on your sheets there at the end. Could you add him to the sheet so that we know who witnessed it?
Yes.
In other words, I see that Greg did the test pits, but I didn't see a witness to the test pits on the plan.
Okay.
So if you could have that added.
And then we also modeled the 50-year storm, which I'm not sure why we left that out originally. And then we provide some additional calculations on inlet capacities for catch basins, gutter capacities, and things like that. I'm sure I missed a few things, but.
It's we're taking some of the plan on having somebody here after the next hearing, or maybe.
I can request that, Mr. Chair, if you wish. I didn't have them here tonight because I knew that they're going to look at this, we'll say create a second review, and so for best use of time, I'd like to get them here so that they can go over things as well. If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I'd like to just bring up a couple of points for me. So, on page 3, item number 7. So you're asking for a new waiver there, regarding the traffic study, correct? Or not being required to do a traffic study?
That's correct. We did not do a traffic study with the first go around of the project, but we also did not ask for the waiver.
And then, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The justification for that is that we are doing the site distance analysis both at the intersection of Harvard Road and County Road, and then the Harvard Road and Princeton Way in the subdivision. You have more than adequate site distance in this area, and the addition of 9 homes is going to have a really negligible impact on the volume of traffic on County Road.
The next one is number 10 on sheet 3. You're also asking for a new waiver there, which is because of color, adding color to the plan, which yes, the registry doesn't allow. So that's a new waiver.
Between now and the 26th, potential next meeting, I think we can get, an opinion from Highway in regards to number 7?
Yes, I don't see why not.
Why do we leave the traffic impact? Because, I feel like traffic is increasing exponentially as each new development arrives. So I think it's important for us to know what those impacts are going to be relative to this project and future ones. Okay.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, I believe that you're saying that because of the site distance plan being included, that's where you're asking for waiver from the traffic study. Correct. For discussion, I think, let's say for Highway, you would have to say, we'll talk about the next meeting.
If I may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on sheet 4, number 12, the first bullet item, it says the applicant shall provide the full flow capacity and indoor elevation of the proposed 18-inch diameter reinforced concrete pipe discharging to detention basin 1P. 1P is this first one, Jeff? Right. I was just asking for clarification. I see it on page 22. I believe. Is that what you're referring to? Is the 18-inch pipe that's running through the basin? Is that what's that being referred to?
So it's actually, if you go to sheet 14, it's the pipe going into that first basin from the road. And it's in plan view. Right here, it's this pipe going from the storm scepter to the head wall. And we label the full flow capacity.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Sheet 5, you're asking for an additional waiver there in regards to the trees. Obviously, you can't locate every tree on there that's larger than 6 inches because it is all wooded. So is that correct? A new waiver for that?
That's right.
The next one I had a question on was sheet 5 of the letter, number 19, regarding the minimum site distance. So the applicant provided minimum site distance for the intersection of County Road and proposed Harvard Road. However, the applicant did not provide site distance for the intersection of the proposed Harvard Road and Princeton Way. Brigantis defers to the board on the validity of providing additional information of the intersection of Harvard and Princeton Way. Site distance plan is now provided. And I saw that, and my question becomes, that, let's see, just get to that. Just get to this. Plan that I'm looking for you here. Yeah, the question, whoops. The question I have on that one is the fact that I see this here. I see the site distance.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, you have a high point right there. So if you do the 3.5 feet at the car and the 6-inch object at the high point, and then you're coming back down, could you just double check that? Could you just have them double check that? Because obviously this isn't a high traffic road, but still there's a crest right here.
Mm-hmm.
And where they're showing that vehicle, I mean, are they actually going to see over the crest and see that vehicle, which is on the downside of the other, on the other side of the crest?
Yeah.
So if you could just verify that.
In the profile below that we do show vertically, then you'll be able to see over that.
And a drive.
But I'll double check it down.
And can I ask a quick question?
Well, this is interesting with this little doohickey right here.
Curve or what?
That seemed to be a bit odd. I don't know if that's an anomaly on the plan.
It's Kevin.
No, in relation to this, right, you see the driveway to lot 9, right? People exiting and entering that, what's their site distance to this elevation in the road that you're talking about, and whether they'll be able to see the same thing?
Well, they're at the top of the. They're roughly at the top of the crest. My only concern here is that where they're showing this is this is coming up the hill, and there's 85, and now you're at 90.3. Can they see over this crest if there's a car here? Now again, this isn't a high traffic road, but I don't know. As crazy as it might sound, but let's say there's children playing in the street. Can that car see over that crest to this intersection? I'd just like them to re-verify that this is, this actually works with that crest there, that's all.
That was what my question with the driveway is, if someone coming out of the driveway, we want to make sure that if they can, when they're looking to the left or the right, that they can see what's coming in that direction.
So if you could just double check that, that'd be appreciated. On page 7, number 24, it talks about section 7.4.32.2b of the regulations stipulate that the stormwater drainage piping shall be a minimum of 12-inch diameter and shall have a minimum depth of cover of 2 feet 6 inches as measured from the roadway subgrade. The applicant is requesting a waiver from this requirement. Number 1, 2 feet of cover over pipes connecting CB1 and CB2 to DMH1, and 2, 2.17 feet of cover over pipe connection DMH1 to DMH7. The applicant should further evaluate the potential lowering of the discharge elevation of head wall 1 to allow for additional cover for the conveyance drain pipes. So you have that lowering HW1, head wall 1, would require grading within 50 feet of the wetland resource area. The planning board did not object to this waiver in the previous filing. The only concern I had there was so this head wall, which is I think this one here, is at elevation 73, okay? So if we come back here, that's 75, that's 73, that's the 50-foot buffer. So if you're gonna hold 73, you're getting into the buffer to make it work, no?
And the intent there is to create a local, kind of isolated punch bowl there at 73, that would then overtop the, that level spreader, okay, at 74, I guess. So that pipe will surcharge a little bit.
Okay.
That's why I don't want to lower it any further. With that waiver, we originally asked to put in a half a cover with ductile iron pipe, and the discussion at the time was that the board at the time okay with 2 feet.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. The flow channel on page 8, number 27, talks about section 7.4.32.6C of the regulations requires that in dry basins a pervious low flow channel shall be used to prevent erosion of the bottom of the basin. The applicant did not include a low flow channel to prevent ponding along the bottom of the basin. The applicant should provide a detail to include such a passive channel or provide a statement as to why this requirement is not necessary. A low flow channel is now specified in detail, which you show on the plan. It's 6 inches deep, correct? Do you still have 2 feet to the water table?
We're not taking credit for the storage in that area, nor for infiltration. It's just kind of the channel so that the water doesn't kind of pop pools here and there.
So it's to prevent, let's say, erosion in the bottom of that basin, correct? Okay. The one thing I didn't receive, page 10, number 42, the watershed sheets.
I noticed that.
I didn't get those, but yeah, if you could get those emailed to me so I can pass those along to Brigantis, that'd be great. Then the other biggest issue, well, that seems to crop up is, can you touch on comment number 43 on page 10?
Yeah.
And I'll read it. Brigantis' comment was Stormwater Handbook Standard 3, Stormwater Recharge. As noted herein, we request that the applicant document the estimated seasonal high groundwater elevation for 1P and 3P, which are 2 ponds. If the separation to the groundwater is less than 4 feet, Brigantis requests that the applicant provide a mounding analysis in accordance with the reference standard of the handbook. So if you could, do you have that in front of you, that letter?
I do.
So if you could read that response and explain it to the board, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So the response that we wrote is, previous finding of this project was reviewed on behalf of the Conservation Commission by Chesia Consulting Services, LLC. Chesia Consulting submitted a peer review letter dated August 12, 2021, which Morse Engineering did not have an opportunity to respond to prior to the Commission voting on August 18, 2021 to deny the project. Chesia Consulting's review letter comments: the Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook requires groundwater mounting where the design of the infiltration system provides less than 4 feet of separation from the groundwater, and the infiltration system is used to control peak rates of runoff by utilizing exfiltration into the basin soils in storms of 10-year, 24-hour frequency and greater. The review goes on to also comment: the applicant could provide additional data, including field investigations, to confirm soil depths and conditions in the proposed basins, or potentially some redesign and changes to the modeling could be performed to eliminate the need for a mounding analysis. If feasible, the design could be revised to provide 4 feet of separation from groundwater, avoiding the need to perform a mounding analysis. Alternatively, the hydraulic model could ignore exfiltration out of the basins in 10-year and greater storms and provide a minimum of 2 feet of groundwater separation at all locations within the basins. This refiling ignores exfiltration out of the basin in 10-year and greater storms and provides a minimum of 2 feet of groundwater separation at all locations within the basins. As recommended, the HydroCAD model has been revised to take credit for exfiltration during the 2-year storm only. Therefore, a mounding analysis in the associated information, borings and double ring infiltrometer tests are not needed. So basically, the you have to provide 2 feet of groundwater separation. If you're providing less than 4 feet of separation, you need to do a bounding analysis. If you're also taking credit for infiltration and storms greater than a 2-year event. So in this case, we're doing 2 feet of groundwater separation, and our calculations no longer take credit for infiltration in any storm bigger than a 2-year event. And that was the comment we received back a year, 2 years ago. At that point, the planning board had approved the project. Conservation was hung up on that point, and we were making these revisions, and we did not continue the project accidentally, and they denied. So that was kind of, we're finally getting around to making that change.
Any questions from the board, Mr. Chair?
Just briefly, Phil comment that pertains to regards to addition of improving areas. That was a valid issue for 20 years. Correct.
That was just in aggregate, we put in our square footage of impervious for each enclosed subcatchment area. And then they print out a summary as well, and then in that summary they give you in acres. And it's a valid issue. So that's my thing.
I have one more, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Last page, page 12, number 54, says, please note the applicant shall be required to develop a full stormwater pollution prevention plan in accordance with the EPA National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System program prior to the commencement of proposed site work. So you're saying that the permit will be obtained prior to construction. I'd like, and this is up to the board, but my recommendation would be, it'd be nice to have that in place prior to endorsement of the plans.
Yeah, I need to know who the contractor is. Form them on that application, you fill out the contractor's name and go over and over again. So I really can't do that until closer to construction. But the applicant knows for sure that it will be required. Any project to serve more than an acre requires a use permit.
And how does conservation feel about it? I just would hate to see that fall through the cracks. I know. Yeah.
You could make it a condition of your approval of prior construction. Copy of permit has to be provided.
I think that would be my recommendation to the board, that there's some kind of condition so that we know that it's done and that we have a copy in house.
So can we break down 40 feet again one more time? Can we do it that? If I'm correct. If I'm correct, Chelsea Consulting now saying that what once was calculated is not a concern because of the 4 feet from the model for not having mnemonic analysis. Is that correct?
So again,
What Chelsea Consulting is saying now in this language here is they're saying that what was once applicable is now no longer applicable because of the less than 4 feet.
He spelled out a couple options of what could be done.
Yeah.
One being stay with 2 feet of groundwater separation, right, but don't take credit for exfiltration and storms greater than a 2-year.
Yeah.
Which is allowed under the stormwater management.
Quick question, John. So the NPDES, if we condition that, right, how do we review it after the fact?
That's my concern is,
You can review it after a storm.
the EPA permit is you have to apply for it. Anytime it's certain acre. So it's to get it in as part of the submittal by the time you approve it. I understand what he's saying, but just it'd be nice to have it in hand when you sign off on the MyLars that it's in house or prior to approval.
You can approve it as a condition, because I know we just went through a subdivision in Norwell where, it had to be submitted to, I forget if it was planning and conservation, but they also had to review it, approve it before construction.
So I guess what I'm trying to say, speaking to what Tony's saying or what you're saying, it sounds to be like, just because we can doesn't necessarily mean we should, right? So I just want to be clear that, that's an important piece to this whole puzzle. And to have it come after the fact, after we've already approved it, what's our recourse?
So the NIPSI permit, it really isn't calculations. It's really a form where you're filling out who is the responsible party. They're signing that they are one responsible for making sure that the erosion barriers are installed correctly, and that they need to be inspected every 2 weeks or after any storm that's larger than so many inches. I can't do that until I know who that responsible party is. And that will be after endorsement.
Is that something we could circle around, come back around maybe?
Sure.
And discuss, Mr. Chair? I think that's a point that maybe we could just kind of come.
Can we also look at and review, I guess, 28? In regards to complete the vote on allowing the demolition of easements. So there was a question in regards to whether or not we're going to continue with the same, or we did have some input from, if I'm not mistaken, we had some input from conservation.
Yes.
About what it has been previous on projects here in Hanson that we have allowed drainage on easements. It's a good argument.
It's a good argument for easements or no easement.
No easement. It should be, I'm sorry, it should be an easement. Definitely.
But we've got, the highway director is also recommending with us in the previous one that we had about keeping it within the easements. Conservation is in contention with that. They wanted to have it on a single lot, correct?
Yes, they did.
I really don't think, to be honest, I think it's a discussion that's happening now. And the previous practice, I don't really think that we have any right to go back and review that. I just want to make sure that we discuss that.
So just briefly to bring up, you also have the issue of, now I have an easement, right? And the homeowner is the actual owner,
Right.
And they continue to pay taxes on something they have absolutely no control over. So that concerns me, as a homeowner myself, if I had, some kind of structure on my property that I'm paying taxes for, I don't know, I think I probably have an issue with that.
Somebody appreciate volunteers to know. We might go do an exercise in futility here just to talk about if there was a change in regards to that, or if there was a rescission of that. What will we now be looking at? We would now be looking at.
Yeah, so
We're now looking at lots that don't conform to zones.
no, it certainly does devalue. Like lot 1 is not as valuable with that easement in it. But the homeowner knows that going into it. And there's actually a fence demarcating that easement too, so no, which portion is within the easement. We did look into redesigning this with parcels, and you do lose a lot. You won't lose a lot. You already know this, but when we originally designed this, the previous planner instructed us to put the basins within easements. We've reviewed other subdivisions, they've all been approved with easements. And this board actually voted 4-0 unanimously for easements. And then we reached out more recently to the highway director, who also was looking for easements. And the extent of the easements is a huge lot. Yeah. With a basin on an easement, they are less likely to be neglected. The homeowner is going to, encourage that it be maintained and maintained properly, instead of just being a separate parcel that no one really cares about.
My only concern about it, and I won't say much more, is that, I didn't get to many closings. I would say that that's usually an area that gets glossed over, just put your initials on next. So, a lot of times, and we hear this all the time, and over the years of conservation, you would hear, I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say, I had no idea that was on my property. So, how do we make sure that the owner is aware? But I think that's kind of important. And to me, for the last 20 years or so, I've been listening to these things on and on. And like I said, I go to these closings and, people after the fact have no idea what they've signed on to because it's buried in the paperwork.
So, lot one is, I would assume that they wouldn't get a building permit to start building on lot one until the road is constructed.
Mm-hmm.
And also the basin would have to be constructed.
Sure.
And as part of that, there is a fence here. And the developer actually intends to build these houses himself as spec homes and then sell them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be, with that kind of scenario, the homeowner would just physically see it.
Any other kind of questions from the board?
I do have some correspondence I'd like to read.
Charlie, please.
So I received via email Wednesday, June 7th, 2023 at 12:04 p.m. I received an email from, one second please. From Marion Scott, 119 Holmes Street, Hanson, Mass. Dear Mr. DeFrias, I would like to request that the following concerns be read into the minutes of the Town of Hanson Planning Board meeting scheduled to be held on June 12, 2023. I am writing to you as a concerned resident of Hanson and a direct abutter to the proposed Zero County Road development project. Upon reading the peer reviews on this project, it seems that the developer will need several waivers to make this project happen as currently proposed. Assuming revisions to the plan will address the areas where waivers would be necessary, I would like to ask the planning board to strongly consider not granting any requests for waivers in any area dealing with stormwater management and containment. These laws were put in place for a reason. This area of Hanson is already struggling to keep up with stormwater runoff. The developer should be required to meet all state of Massachusetts as well as Town of Hanson established bylaws and recommendations that pertain to the containment of stormwater as well as all the additional water that the proposed 9 new houses will release for daily use. I am very worried that water being released into land that has been built up several feet will have a greater chance of flowing to neighboring properties and wetlands. Historically, there has been poor drainage in this area as demonstrated by the constant flooding of yards and basements in the area as well as water that is not absorbed into the ground and ends up flowing across Holmes Street or through a broken drainage pipe under Holmes Street. This water currently ends up flooding yards, basements, and our precious wetlands with excess water possibly contaminated with wastewater, chemicals, and pollutants. I asked the planning board to do the responsible thing and require strong adherence to the state and town mandates, bylaws, and directives governing stormwater management and require any development of this area to abide by these directives. Any property that is built up 4 to 7 feet is bound to have drainage to the surrounding 4 to 7 feet is bound to have drainage to the surrounding area, especially when there is impervious soil beneath it. If waivers are requested in order to make this project happen, I would like to point out that although some waivers may be feasible and acceptable, others will be very detrimental to our precious wetlands and neighboring properties. Please vote responsibly and in the best interest of the residents of Hanson and require strict adherence to established laws that have to do with water containment and management. Thank you.
The question that would be somewhat related to this. So I know we have a bylaw on the books, and I didn't have a chance to look it up today because I didn't have time. It's how many, when this fits into that bylaw, the amount of material that's being brought in. I believe that they need some kind of approval from the select, and I'd like to know if that is going to happen and when.
I believe there is an earth removal bylaw.
Oh, yeah, but in there, it also states that bringing it in as well. So, yeah, so.
I could come on, it's on the general bylaws, to be Article 3-12, I think.
Yeah, so removal and bringing in soil from it, because we have to know where it's coming from, whether it's clean. So I believe that that's the selectmen that are responsible for that.
Take a look at that.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Please state your name and address for the record.
Ron Scott with 18 Rome Street. I have a question for Jeff here.
Yes.
Yeah, is the developer still planning on bringing in 4,500 truckloads of fill to build the project up 4 to 7 feet?
Yeah,
With all these changes,
Yeah, the general grading of the site really has not changed.
not changed.
So,
Comment on the last question of this easement thing. Is it going to be the homeowner on property one that's going to be required to upkeep this,
It is going to be the homeowners association.
and that can be voted on at some point in time, right?
It'll be the entire homeowners association will be responsible, unless or until the road becomes a public roadway, and then it would be the town's responsibility.
So,
Yeah, if that is the case, what happens if the homeowners decide not to form an association? I know lots of times that has happened in developments.
It's a requirement. It'll be a requirement of endorsement of the plans. Is that they set out an HOA and it has to be reviewed by the planner.
But lots of people buy the houses and they've lived there for 3 or 4 years, and they say, hey, we don't want this homeowners association, they disband. Who's responsible then?
I mean, they can't. It's on their deed. It runs with the property.
I also question, just information from Chizio's report. He did not have privy to the information that's now been presented. His report was on a different version of this project. His investigations, his material still pertain, or is that a whole other issue now?
I mean, it does pertain. He won't do any reviews and I believe moving forward. But he had already reviewed that matter.
But
It had a
different
very-
project, not for
it
this
had-
one.
Yeah. Different project, very similar.
Yeah, that's like that was oranges.
Keith Johnson, 96 County Road.
thank you, Mr. Jones.
For the record, I oppose this project. I want to just quickly mention the last conservation meeting we had prior to the DEP denying, there wasn't any representation from the engineer or from the builder present when the denial came down. So I just wanted that to be on record, that nobody showed up for that meeting. And since we're talking about the previous project, I'd like to know what's going to be done about the private drinking water, because that was in a denial from the state. Has that been corrected?
Just for clarification, some of this is down into more conservation issue on the board.
Okay.
That's by the applicant, conservation coming up on 21st. That's actually a little bit more of a conversation that's out of the planning board jurisdiction.
Sure, I just wanted for the record, because Jeff had brought up that nobody was here for the decision. Nobody was. No representation.
Going back to Tony made it, in the beginning, you were talking about test pits. Was that item 16 on the original, peer review? You were referring to?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr.
No, what I was asking for was they were asked to provide more test pits, which they did, and more testing. They put those logs on the plans. What I did not see was who from the town witnessed those logs. So that's what I was asking to place on the plan.
Okay, then item 16 here indicates that the application conducted in series of test pits will be seen by Board of Health. And that was from a prior March 31st, 21. Are these the test pits that he's referring to in item 16 that need to be witnessed, additional test pits or whatever?
In the beginning, some of them weren't witnessed, but if you're fully first.
So,
Mr. Hanson.
Drainage test pits do not need to be witnessed. They have to be done by a professional DEP licensed soil evaluator. They do not need to be witnessed. They were not originally witnessed, but that came up over and over again, so when we went out and did more test pits, we had them witnessed.
Mr. Gill.
With the concerns of the maintenance and the going forward with the neighborhood, I'm wondering if this is an opportunity to acquire both stormwater management, maybe suggest the underground detention. Just something not even just a thought.
You would have tried to encapsulate them.
What is it?
I wouldn't try to encapsulate them at this point. There was some high water table here, so I wouldn't get comfortable. Just my guess.
It's an extremely high water table. All of the area, but you really can't. You don't get it. And my concern, as well as theirs, is maintenance going forward. And who pays, I know that the association will pay for it, but it's just a concern that who's going to make sure everything's in place for the town to take over as far as, that they've not, brought over across all the T's. They're going to be a fund set up somewhere or something.
Are you referring to the roadway becoming a public way?
Yes.
Just more than
I just want to make sure.
Yes. I suppose that's
One more question for me. Will this, probably cause more water in the wetlands than there now?
No.
Okay.
Will this cause more additional water in the wetlands? We
This
all know
project, if approved, would this project cause additional waters in the wetlands?
Yes.
Absolutely not. The whole intent of what the applicant's doing is putting all measures in place so that any water stays within the property and is properly dealt with.
And if it doesn't, it's responsible.
What's that?
If it doesn't, if the water doesn't stay where it's supposed to, who's
I
responsible?
don't say what they're supposed to, then absolutely, conservation would be right on that, and then we'd be revisiting this whole project again with the conservation.
But it would already be built by then. So
It would have to be mitigated, that's a law.
we own a large strip of wetlands, and there's constantly a river flowing out into that under Home Street through a large broken pipe. Is that pipe going to be able to handle any more water? I don't know.
There won't be any more water, it'll be the same amount, if not less.
Okay, a quick question, something I want to have like a professional weigh in on, because I know that all that we're discussing is within a certain 50-year storm, 100-year storms. This is all designed for how many years? Like storm.
100-year storm.
So that it is a 100-year storm. So if we were to have an event that was somewhat beyond the 100-year event, all bets are up. Is that correct?
No, I mean, we're calculating for 8 inches of rain over 24 hours. We still have to put a freeboard in the detention basin, and the water's still going to route through those structures. So, if I had run it with a larger number, I think it wouldn't work. Similar to when you run the 25, 50, 100, if you get 2 of them to work, the other one's going to work too usually.
The whole premise of the stormwater management is that the water and the volume that's going off this site now as woods has to be equal or less once it's all built out. Their drainage calculations do show that they are reducing. They're equal or less than what's coming off the property now with what you see on the screen there.
I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think what these people's concern, and my concern as well, is, engineers make mistakes. We all know that. We've seen buildings fall down, well designed or supposedly well designed. So, are there any assurance that you can give these people that you really work diligently at making sure that those numbers have room in them for events that may exceed that 100-year storm?
We certainly have. And this project is unique in that I've never seen a project be reviewed by 4 different engineers. This has a lot of sets of eyes on it.
Mr. Chair, if I have a question for Mrs. Scott. The broken pipe you referred to under Home Street, do you happen to know who's in charge of that pipe? Have you brought that up to?
You mentioned it to them a year or 2 ago.
Okay. Have you brought it up to them again
Not recently.
to take a look at it?
I think conservation went up and actually saw it.
I've actually submitted pictures to conservation. I think I might have to planning board last year
Okay.
of this pipe and the river that goes through it.
Okay. And have you received any response from the highway department?
No.
Okay. Would you be willing to forward me that information?
Well,
Via email? Via the email?
Pictures and everything. I have videos, I have snapshots.
I'll pass it along to highway. I'm not making any guarantees, but I'll pass it along to them and see if there's a response.
I don't know how long.
Right.
You know the last time there was any maintenance done on it?
Not since I've been there.
That whole area has so much water that this last winter, the water was going across Home Street, froze. They had to get a backhoe thing out to scrape it off the road. It's right over the corner. There's been several accidents.
So if you could just email me that information, I'll try and pass it along.
You never know. There also might be somebody around listening that might be able to pass it along as well.
Mr. Johnson, just for the record, it's my understanding that back in the day, County Road was closed due to frost heaves from the wetlands and all the water in the area. Something to keep in mind.
This is why we're also concerned, because we're already having flooding, basements, people with 2 and 3 sump pumps to keep ahead of it. And if the water doesn't get contained the way it should, what's gonna happen? Septic systems, wells.
Sure.
Is it possible to request that the developer float a bond to protect those people for 5 years, just to see if it is gonna work?
There's gonna be a bond that's gonna be on the project in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Tell people if they have to replace wells or,
during the project, during the project, the bond's there to protect against the development itself and the town's holding of that bond in case there was anything that wasn't done. As far as using that bond for private use, it wouldn't, I don't see how it could be applicable. Now you're talking more of a civil matter as opposed to the town getting involved in a civil suit. I wouldn't see how the town would be able to request that.
So that's my protection we got. Is a civil matter?
If the budget was approved and if there was a problem, if the problem, I would have to say, existed because of or during the construction or as a result of the construction, I certainly think that that's a failure of the construction, and that's when the planning board would have jurisdiction to be able to start that process. But I think anything after the fact, I think it would be a civil matter. Mr. Gill?
I know, who would they go after in that case, if there was an issue, whatever, is it Morris, is it the builder, is it?
Yeah, well, I do have to.
Who takes credit for this building?
So I do have to, I'm gonna break for a few moments from just kind of regular procedure and speak about something, and I hate to say it because it seems like it's very taboo. But there is another aspect of this. And if we go down an exercise in futility, which I hate doing because it seems to prove itself, and I'm certainly by no way making any suggestions, but we have been very experienced in the town itself in regards to what happens when development gets denied. There's a very dangerous, in my opinion, my personal opinion, is a very dangerous alternative choice after the fact. So looking forward and looking for development in the town, one of the planning board's responsibility is responding responsibly to development that goes along with development in the town. That's in conjunction with the master plan and things of that nature. So when you start talking about potential litigation, you've already put the cart before the horse in regards to what we've said quite a few times, that the developer that is coming in has been extremely agreeable with multiple requests. We haven't had a negative from them, not once, not yet. There is something to be said for that. I do understand, and I am a citizen, as many of you, as well as the planning board and in the town, just as much as everybody here is. I am 100% a citizen, just like you are. I am your neighbor. But there is a certain point where some of the talk that happens goes into kind of a nitty-gritty in my backyard, a kind of a snob zone or whatever you want to call it, and it does go down a very dangerous road about speculation and things of that nature. The data that is provided to us to be able to make decisions is based off of multiple of errors that have happened in the past that have changed the regulation for the future, for betterment of the future. Those are a lot of things that we as a board have to take into consideration in regards to promoting or denying a project. In regards to denial of a project, there has to be some pretty specific information that comes before the board, and some pretty specific recommendations from not only just the planning board, but in and of itself, other people that we've asked for input from. And to be flat out honest with everybody, we have not had that. It has not happened. But instead, we've had just the opposite. We've had a very agreeable developer that has mitigated beyond original requests and original recommendations and original regulation to make sure and maintain that any moisture, any water, any wetness stays and is regulated inside this property the way it's supposed to. That should be recognized, and it does need to be recognized. They have done a very good job of doing that. Can anybody here in this room see the future? Absolutely not. Is there a way, is there always a vessel to be able to go forward and mitigate any issues? Absolutely. I certainly think that if we were to see anything happen while the project was going on, because of the way that this has happened, the way that we've gotten to where we're at now, I don't see any reason why the developer wouldn't, if it's approved, wouldn't say, let's take care of that. I haven't seen any reason yet where anybody has said, no, not doing that, not interested, no thank you, pound sand, whatever you want to call it. So I don't see any issues with that happening here. Not to say that it couldn't happen, it absolutely could happen. But we as a planning board have to think about things as a whole. And one of those things that we have to think about in this whole is responsible planning, responsible building, responsible development. There hasn't been anything, there's been some opinion and conjecture, but none of it has been based off of anything that to be able to say that the planning board has a right to deny. If the planning board was to deny, like I was saying, going down a road of exercise of utility here, if the planning board was denied just to deny, then the developer has a course of action, whether it be an appeal or whether it be come back with a completely different project, to which in my own personal opinion I would hate to never see. That's a very large piece of land, very large piece of land. And a lot of the stuff that we have jurisdiction in and that we're trying to regulate and control, it wouldn't be there any longer. So I just have to make sure that we say that. There are some mitigations that we can request and talk about. One of those things Tony's talking about, absolutely, that outflow pipe, that's a concern. That's not on this project, but that's certainly something that we're discovering outside the scope of the project. Certainly we can pass that on if I'm
But that pipe is
Mr. Still.
right across from the basin there.
Right. On homes.
Right. Back to the comment while you're looking this up.
Mr. Kevin.
So one of the things that, I've been in conservation for quite a long time before I was on this board. And I'm by no means any expert on conservation, but the thing that concerns me when I see a project like this that's been well designed and well planned out, where ones in the past have not, that's not the fault, like the sins of the past, what do we do with that? But there were many projects that, if you were to zoom out with Google and take a look around the neighborhood and see there's several neighborhoods in that area that were, I don't consider poorly designed, which have contributed to this problem. So the thing that we grapple with, I should say I grapple with, is should this developer who's come before us with a plan that seems to be better than most that I've seen recently, do we hold him to what the sins of the past? That's really my question. And the reason I say that is because the pipe that you're talking about, I don't think these people had anything to do with the installation of that pipe. Right? Yeah, exactly. And I think for us to say you can't do your project because there's a pipe down the road that's going to get worse because of your development, we have to own that pipe, right? And that's a whole other issue. There's the highway department and what do you call it, the drainage committee should all be looking at these situations and problems in town and fixing them somehow. And I understand that all takes money, right? But we need to make sure that our community is well served when it comes to these wetlands and these pipes that are who knows who put it there and why. And going forward, I think that's one of the solutions we should take from this meeting is that, a lot of these things need to be addressed so that projects like this can't go forward because in a lot of ways, in past iterations of this project, there was a zip line that was proposed at one point. And there's been some things that have been proposed here, solar panels, all kinds of stuff. And at some point, something's going to go there, whether we like it or not. So what's the lesser of all of these evils? Is it this project? I don't know.
I'm just concerned, what do you want on an acre of wetlands land?
Sure.
If that water comes more into it, it's gonna just flood in front of a house.
And just to clarify, it's land that's wet or is actually designated as wetlands.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So So you've got some extreme regulation that has the protections for that, you know. As well as the butters that are extremely close to the project, there's been a lot of mitigation. Mr. Johnson?
I don't think the abutters and the people are against the houses per se, but when we got back the state report with all the questions they had, it really opened our eyes. The state is saying, this isn't gonna work, this isn't good. No, that's what we're looking at.
And unfortunately, the reality of the town, unless you live up on High Street or Fort Road, we run into that wherever we're going. I just dug down 8 feet in my backyard and I found clean water, I drank it. So, I mean, it takes a little funny like 90s, but I couldn't believe that 8 feet down from the topsoil I found water.
I think if it's gonna be done, it needs to be done right, so
Yes.
that people aren't flooding.
And to add any assurance that if the project was to be approved and move forward, this board is absolutely boots on the ground active. We 100% don't shirk our responsibility. I'm sure Tony's probably sick of some of the phone calls he gets from us about other things that we notice around town. But we're active and we are your neighbors, so we know and we're right there just as much as with due respect. If there was something going on next to us, we'd ask the same. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for breaking that down for us. The one thing that I really can't seem to wrap my head around is if they're not going to take credit for the storm management, then who's taking credit for it? Meaning,
I don't think anybody's
I guess I'm lost, actually.
talking about the maintenance on the basins.
I'm talking about all the storm water management. If the engineer's not taking credit for it, then who is?
If the road was to be proposed as a public way, approved as a public way, it would be the highway department of the town.
No, not the basins. So I heard over and over again from the developer that, the engineer, that we're not taking credit for it.
Yeah.
Okay. In general, I don't know what that pertains to.
So can you explain that?
Yeah, so all of the runoff from this development is going to be captured in the catch basins and directed into 2 infiltration basins. And we run calculations for the pre-development conditions and the post-development conditions. And we ultimately size those basins so that they're large enough to hold back enough water and then release it slowly so that you're not increasing the rates and the volumes of runoff. So and basically you have small outlets releasing the water slowly over time so that you don't flood anyone else. In those calculations, we can also take credit for exfiltration, for infiltration into the soil. And if you have less than 4 feet of groundwater separation, then you can't take credit for that infiltration beyond a 2-year storm event, so in the larger storms.
Okay, so like in my backyard where I have 2 feet of separation.
Well, it really only applies to the big infiltration basins. Water is leaving out of the outlet structures and then also infiltrating into the ground. In my calculations, can't take credit for that water infiltrate all of that, which is saying it is infiltrating into the ground, but I can't take credit for that when I'm trying to prove that the rates and the volumes are being reduced.
Right, so I guess my concern with that is that my backyard is potentially a basin because the topography dips on that 96 right adjacent with the main road there. And if you look at the backyard topography, if any more water gets into there, I'm done. I mean, I'm running two pumps right now.
With the calculations and the mitigation proposed.
And this is all I have to live on, is my fingers are crossed that his calculations are correct. And that's not easy.
Based off of the additional mitigations that have been proposed all along that property.
Again,
we also added that avenue with the trench.
And again, I mean, I'm a builder, so I know that one calculation is off, it's gonna throw everything off.
So to play devil's advocate here,
I'm just throwing it out that my fingers are crossed.
to play devil's advocate, if the trench was opened and there's moisture and water coming from your property into their swale.
But it's not gonna do, they're gonna build it all up around my door.
Just make it point here, do they turn around and start metering that and ask you for a payment for taking care of the water?
I mean, if the topography goes the opposite direction, sure, but right now, everything for me is going down to the Scott's property. Or on the homes, and, you know, as a homeowner, I'm sorry that I'm part of that, but I've also got the topography that says I've got a basin here.
It's just, you know, can I just throw something out there, Joe? I think, you know, from all of the hearings that I've been involved in this, I think we've tried to address most of your issues, you know, and we feel your pain, you know, we see where you're coming from. And we've done everything we can to mitigate that, but I can't tell you that, in my knowledge of construction, the first thing that's gonna get built is these structures, right? Stormwater management structures on the road, right? And then you'll start to see houses getting built. And I think that there's any issues on your property at that point, right, it's gonna be revealed before any houses
You
go.
can reveal, the minute they start digging, it's gonna be revealed, because then what are they gonna do with the water? They don't have a basin to put it in.
So I know that's small consolation in some respects, but I think that in the middle of the project, if you know the planning board and the conservation commission see that this plan is not functioning, it's not over at that point. Right? I don't know if that makes sense, but you know the engineers are going to have to go back and modify their design and fix this problem before they get it in trust with the home for good. Right? So you do have an opportunity to try this out, so to speak, before it really gets like I said, I'm home and stuff. So I think you start with blessing them having gone home. I don't know if that helps, but you know, you certainly see the impact of it. You know,
Or mediation. It's one or the other, you know, it's either gonna be plus or minus, you know. And we'll have, if approved, we'll have continuation meetings.
I just know from all the meetings that I've been part of in the last 3 years, test pit numbers haven't come back from what they've said they were. There's been things that have been overlooked, and it just seems like we'll figure it out at the end. And I see all of this, and I appreciate all of this, because I'm sure this is a lot of work. And designing a system like this is pretty complex. I just hope it works.
I hear what you're saying. That's what he was saying.
And I hope the numbers are correct.
Nobody said anything about you'll figure it out at the end. We wouldn't allow that. Absolutely wouldn't. We wouldn't allow that. If that's the case, none of the mitigation requested previously would have been even talked about. We'd be waiting for everything to be built, and then be going back to the drawing board and saying, hey, can we put in some vegetation? Can we put in a swale? Even the town planners come, our new town planners since the project is, they come up and said, in addition to a swale, how about adding that?
That stone trench is something that we added at the request of the Conservation Commission as well, as an idea to try to improve that area, as well as adding all these trees along the front. So it's certainly welcome to try to resolve that issue that's, you know, beyond this project. It's a wet area there. If we can capture that water and direct it to the back as part of this project, the developer's going to do that. Well, we're already showing on the plan.
So we have a next review on the 26th, is that correct? We're going to have from the engineer?
They will have their second review done by that date. I don't know if the board would like to entertain moving this, say, to July 10th, when you have a full
The only
complement.
other thing that I would make mention of is that we do have somewhat of a new, I don't know if it's a permanent regulation of town, but the addition of the private way sign, is that something that's going to be responsible to highway people?
Yeah, I think so.
I think they have a few extras. Any other questions for the public? Any other questions for the board? Tom Planner?
I have no further questions at this time.
I entertain a motion to move continue the public hearing for the medical requirements residential until June 26, 2023.
Do you want to do June 26th or July? See what's not good enough for the people.
I haven't got to that point yet. Are you guys okay doing that if I was here? I'm sorry, I'm not available on the 26th. Do you want to move it to July 10th? With that, I entertain a motion to move the continued public hearing to 7/10/23. So moved.
Are you okay with that, John?
Yes.
July 10th.
know I'll be on the 10th.
I may not.
Okay. Motion's been made by Mr. Cohen, seconded by Mr. Kemet. Any discussion in regards to the motion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 302, Tony. And we will also have Rick Verdantis at that meeting.
Yes.
Okay. And the time?
To be determined. If you,
Just keep on checking the
you want to check on the webpage, or if you're willing to put your email address on that sign-in sheet, I can send everyone the.
I've been trying to keep up with everyone. Email. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Appreciate you visiting. Let's look forward to seeing you on the 10th if you have any other further questions. Please break.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Appreciate it. And if no further performance for tonight's planning board meeting, next item of business is board business. First topic is to approve the May 22nd, 2023 minutes. What's the will of the board? Motion to approve. Motion's been made by Mr. Kemet to approve the May 2023 minutes. Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 302, Tony. Minutes for May 22nd are approved. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. See you in July. Happy 4th. Thank you. Moving on, discuss and endorse board member signature authorization form for plans and any related documents. Contact.
Every year, once the board reorganizes, this is, you did this last year, is some sheets for signatures of the planning board members, letting the land court and the registry of deeds know that who all the current members are and who are authorized to sign plans. And then I also had a sheet which we did last year, which would authorize, if a majority of the board voted, to allow the chair to endorse plans and other certificates of the subject control on their behalf. Seeing how that we do not have a full board this evening, I would suggest that we table this until when we do have a full board.
What's all the board? There's a motion to table recommended by the town planner. Is there a second? Second. Motion is made and seconded in regards to tabling or tabling the endorsement on to July 10th. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 302, Tony.
That was Mr. Cohen made the motion.
Mr. Moulton, yeah, Mr. Cohen, motion, Mr. Kenneth, second. Board member subcommittee updates, OCP, open space hasn't any updates. Tony might have some stuff in his report for OCPC, and I'll let him do that in his report. Mr. Ellis is not present. Mr. Cohen.
Just an update that we had a nice Zoom meeting with Nicole Finger-Rito, who is the CEO of Capital Strategic Solutions, about an outreach program to businesses in Wilson, and we're finalizing a letter that will go out to some of the to all the businesses in town.
Nice.
So yeah.
Who has it? Somebody at town hall registry that has on business addresses?
We do, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Mr. Kim.
I have no comment. The last meeting was canceled due to the tenant. We have another one Wednesday. So,
Thank you. Mr. Brennan is not present for drainage to stormwater. Moving on the agenda, discussion for creation of policy and or regulation for the acceptance of private ways to public ways within the town of Hanson. Town planner.
This was a discussion that we had earlier regarding the policy that was discussed with Jay Towerman. I also looked at Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 6N, which allows a town to create a bylaw which states what type of work that they would do on a private way. But again, seeing as how there is not a full board this evening, I don't know if you want to discuss this or move it to when we have a full board to get everyone's input.
I concur.
Is that a form of motion, Mr. Kevin? Yes. Mr. Kevin makes a motion in regards to the discussion to further into 7/10/23.
And second.
Second by Mr. Cohen. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0-2. Administration, moving on to administration on our agenda, town planner.
We have an invoice here for $2,121. This is to pay for the peer review provided by Verdantis for the Meadowbrook subdivision. This is going to come out of an escrow account that was set up with the $10,000 that was supplied by the applicant. So what you'll have is a voucher, a warrant, the invoice, and as the last sheet is a authorization to disperse from the applicant's escrow account signed by the applicant. So I need the chair to authorize that, please.
Do you want all the signatures on this one? Because we don't have that.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Because you haven't done that.
So since we're in the discussion of policy and regulations, can I bring up an item?
Can we get through Tony's report and then extra?
The next one is the 5 one-stop grants. The deadline was June 2nd. All 5 were filed by the deadline. So that totals out to just over $2 million being requested in grants in the FY24 for under the one-stop program. They'll be reviewing that through the summer, and we will not find out until the fall if we received any of the monies from the grants. Yeah. The last thing I have is the TIP, which is a Transportation Improvements Program regarding McQuan Street. We met with a delegation of the Old Colony Planning Council under the state budget. They were able to, I believe it was Senator Brady, hopefully I got that right, was able to secure $100,000 for the SUE, which is the subsurface underground engineering that is needed to determine the location of the water line horizontally, vertically, and what type of shape it's in. So in the state budget, he was able to secure the $100,000 that we need for that. So Hanson will not have to pay for that once it's all squared away through the state.
But does Hanson have to command and control all that? And how much input are we going to get from Hamilton, Rockland Water?
Well, the thing is with the MassDOT, the SUE has to be done. MassDOT is requiring that,
right?
And it's going to cost $100,000.
Okay.
Probably a little more.
Okay.
And Hanson was going to have to pay for it. So through OCPC and working with the local politicians, and they were able to secure that money.
Okay.
So at least that's money that Hanson will not have to try and find to pay for it. So at least that's covered. And then as far as trying to further Abington, Rockland into understanding what's at stake here, it continues. The work continues to try and come to some kind of agreement, if you will.
So what you're saying is $100,000 is going to elucidate us on what could potentially be a problem, and what we'll be able to figure out how much that would cost to make those repairs.
Yes. So yes, we can get through the SUE. We'll have a better understanding of what's in the ground, and then maybe that will help motivate the Water Commission to do something, or potentially try and find monies in conjunction with them through grants or earmarks or whatever. But it'll give them a better idea of what's in the ground.
Well, I think it's better about this too. It's also now we know definitively at the state house level that somebody at the state house level has eyes on the fact that somebody may not be playing well in sandbars with us.
Mhm.
That's pretty good, because the last thing we want is have that Tim project die in the vine.
And that's actually a really nice project. You know, and coming right out of Pembroke and right into Hanson with sidewalks and great improvements to that section of the road.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd like to see that happen.
I wonder if in the summer we entertain, when the new website's up, I don't know if we can put in the renderings that came down about that, so that people can see right from the website, they can see the renderings of the sidewalk with the green space in between and then the street. I think it might be a good idea, like a tentative.
Well, we have plans in the office of the 25% design.
Yeah.
I believe there's some details in there. So there is, I think there's some information.
Which was something where, Willoughby's property, I have on that, because that was proposed as a park.
Is that the one that's right on the pond?
We had one.
Yeah, that's the one I was calling for that converted to micro park.
Yep.
So yeah, the sidewalk would be fantastic in that area. Obviously, there'd be sidewalk, bike lane, etc. And it'd go across right in front, right by the library.
I think that should be on. Here's what you're planning for, to the wrong way for you, because it's kind of fallen by the wayside, it's kind of lost in the rolls because of the interim time. Awesome.
So there's just one quick thing I wanted to bring up.
Also, Tony?
I am, yes.
Okay, for the good of the order, Mr. Kevin. So one of the things that I'm thinking about, and this project brings it up to me, is that I feel like we should have a bylaw or some kind of a zoning ordinance. I don't know if this is great. We can do this. So one of the things that concerns me is, it's up to the behest of the builder. They put it up on a homeowner or the homeowners association to have a roads approved. And I don't know if we can create a bylaw or zoning or it requires roads to be accepted before it's turned over to the HOA. I don't know how to word that exactly, but I think we should explore that going forward, so that because it just seems to me like the root of all of our problems about our roadways is related to the desire for the development to get as far away from the acceptance of roads as they possibly can. This guy here, the last time we were in, I asked him, if it was his plan to have the road accepted, and he said, no, that's up to the HOA.
It's up to the HOA.
So I don't know if we can change that, but I think we should, because, we're trying to get to the point where, zero private roads. Yet, we're approving projects where the roads are still private and could remain that way. So.
I think this one's kind of brackish because it's kind of in the middle of when that, let's be able to address that.
Oh, I know, yeah, but this project just kind of brings that up.
Of course, it's already left the barn. Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I know, that puts the developer on the spot because, they want to get away from it as quick as possible, and if there's an issue with it getting accepted, they're already gone. So, they're not going to be favorable to something like that, but I just think we should solve that problem ourselves.
Look at what the requirements are.
And is it even doable?
Again, let's spitball it for July 10th.
Okay. I've kind of tried to do some research on it, but, there's a lot of stuff out there. It takes a lot.
Yeah, you got to rabbit stuff.
Yes, rabbit hole.
For the good of the order, I did know something in our rules and regulations to look under the ZBA. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, and maybe we can put this on as a topic agenda for July, is that the planning board does have the right to appoint an associate member. I didn't know if it's something we should look into doing and putting out there as a request or look for applicants for the appointment of an associate member. Prime example is tonight we had two members that are not present that we could call up that associate member. That's underneath the ZBA rules already. That's just last paragraph and she says. We definitely think we should put something on for July 10th in case we run into that issue.
Well, I think it's a great idea because it kind of goes back to the discussions we've had over the years about board summits where, all the boards of conservation, it's great to see that you're here. And we wish we could be at your meetings and, because it kind of helps a lot, I don't know, we can't make it a requirement, but I think, it just shows that civic engagement because, we're all looking at the projects that are coming up. And not in the end, so, you're not here looking to start trouble and, it's like if everybody can be on the same page, we're here to help out the community and the citizens, so why wouldn't we all get together and try to make it right?
We could, if we could do that in certain cases where there are bigger projects and a lot of the times it's involved.
You know, like,
I'm not sure how that would work.
I couldn't say it in this meeting, but I felt like, you know, this project, if this doesn't go through, we know what's next, right? People are celebrating when they made this go away the last time, but if a 40B goes in, all of this discussion about this next door neighbor or anyone else goes right out the window. So, you know, I worry about that, like that, but I don't know. Discussing it.
We can have that same discussion at some point in the future. Should there be a time for the process where we have a super board, where we ask highway to be present, conservation to be present, you know, all at the same time? Should that be procedurally done? Could be a machine kind of break it down the side. We've just started, or we're just starting to get interoffice communications, which we've lost. So I don't know if that's that you're not receiving things, but I'm assuming that's what it is, because anything you get, you pass on to us. You know, there used to be a lot of interoffice communication between all the land use boards. We just don't get anything. It kind of started when there was a little bit of angst in town hall in the previous plan.
No, I've been in communication with all the boards on the second floor that are relevant to the project. You know, I'd like to think that I have a good rapport with everyone on the second floor, and pass along information to them and have a good exchange of information and discussions. Same thing with the other departments that need to review it and pass along information, such as police, fire, highway, water.
Because you could get that one last, like, oh, I forgot to ask this, can we wait until we can hear from so-and-so, and then that's another 30 days, and just don't seem to get that.
Well, one of the reasons that I like the idea of this is when I worked in Braintree, we had to build a school, and it had to be done in the summer. It had to be done from the day the school when it opened again. School had to be reasonably full, and we decided the only way to do that was all the board committees expressed their concerns ahead of time and flush it all together. And the meetings were quite fascinating because everyone would have to address whatever issue they had, and the project was completed ahead of time because of collaboration with committees. So I just think we can do a lot of that.
This is a tedious project, and when it's a project that it doesn't have support of the neighbors, it becomes a tedious. In the private sector, I was where Mr. Hassett's sitting with the projects that they take a long time because you're trying to address all the issues and do the best job you can. It's based on, the design is based on conforming to all the regulations under the subdivision control, the Wetlands Protection Act, the drainage requirements, stormwater management, and engineering practices. So there is a lot to be involved. It's not an easy piece of ground, but I think with the right planning and the engineering, they can probably make it all work.
In all the years I've been doing this, I can be honest with you, it's been really good that I've seen a developer take the pains that these guys have gone through to satisfy. So, just because of that, they deserve a little credit, and I'm somebody trying to get that.
Another one?
I'd be willing to entertain a motion.
So we have to talk about next meeting. So, Tony, in your opinion, do you think that the 626 would actually have anything pretty crazy crafty, or do you think we could look at it as getting into our summer ones and going down to a month-to-month?
Well, I'm always concerned that, if you have someone that brings in the Form A, you have 21 days.
So aside from a Form A coming in, would you be able to do something next week?
That's at the will of the board.
But do you feel comfortable that we could be able to fly fast enough to be able to do that? So that would be Kevin on July 26th. You'd have to win the meeting. So in case that was to happen, there's nothing. So aside from something coming in that has a time constraint, is the board okay with scheduling July 10th? Yep. Is that the form of motion? Yes. Mr. Kevin made a motion to have our next planning board on July 10th, provided that there's nothing that's time constraint. So that'll be notified by the town planner's office. Mr. Second Cohen, second, is that any discussion in regards to that? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? So we are tentative for July 10th, 2023, and I'll notify Mr. Allison. I'll let him know that we're going to be tentative until July 20th, pending that there's nothing that comes in. I'll do that. All the first, can we vote to table? Yeah. Thank you. 302. Anybody else on the 31? Yeah. Mr. Carl?
What is it?
Mr. Carl?
Oh, thanks for having me. I wish I could come more, but I'm already busy all the time. There's too much going on.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I already made that motion, but, you know.
All right, Mr. Kevin made a motion to adjourn.
All right,
Properly seconded by Mr. Cohen at 8:57. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? 8:57, we are adjourned.